Welcome back to your ultimate pit stop, Piston Pundit. Trade tension has roared back onto the North American track, and this time the engines are louder than ever. What began as a tariff tug-of-war has turned into a geopolitical drag race deciding where Canada's auto future will be built. Washington wants every bolt tightened on U.S. soil. Beijing waves tariff relief like a green flag. And in the driver's seat sits Prime Minister Mark Carney, balancing jobs, factories, and an entire EV supply chain that could either stall or surge ahead. From the assembly lines of Ontario to the canola fields of the prairies, this is the high-stakes showdown shaping Canada's next economic lap. America slams the throttle on Made in USA. The first rev came from U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick. Standing before business leaders in Toronto, he made it crystal clear: America's auto industry comes first. No trade pact without tariffs, no shared production lines, and no compromise on Made in America. For over half a century, the US and Canada operated like a finely tuned V8, parts crossing borders multiple times before final assembly. Lutnick's declaration threatened to seize that gearbox. Ontario Premier Doug Ford didn't mince words, calling it a direct threat to Canadian jobs in Windsor, Oshawa, and Oakville, the piston chambers of Canada's auto heart. Carney's government tried to downshift the crisis by opening tariff relief talks with both Washington and Beijing, but the bigger message was unmistakable. The U.S. was shifting from partnership to dominance. Ottawa answered with its own torque, cutting GM and Stellantis quota exemptions after their local production dropped. It was a diplomatic clutch kick, warning that if America kept revving too high, Canada could redline right back. Still, under the hood, anxiety grew. Could Canada's manufacturing engine keep its compression in an era of rising protectionism? But America's thunderous acceleration was just the beginning. What came next would test Ottawa's loyalty and Canada's economic steering like never before. The Copycat dilemma: Canada pays for loyalty. Rather than chart its own route, Ottawa initially hugged Washington's bumper. In October 2024, it slapped a 100% tariff on Chinese-made EVs, mirroring Trump's hardline stance. The move looked patriotic, but the knock-on effects were brutal. Budget-friendly EVs that sell in Asia for under $25,000 now cost Canadian buyers double that. Beijing retaliated with tariffs on canola and meat, gutting a multi-billion-dollar export pipeline that kept prairie farms humming. Former NDP leader Tom Mulcair nailed it. Canada didn't start this trade war, we copied it. By mid-2025, the consequences were visible in every showroom and factory. Tesla's market share sputtered. EV sales cooled and plants in Ontario and Quebec faced layoffs as automakers consolidated production south of the border. The government's synchronized policy with Washington might have looked like teamwork, but it was really drafting in another car's slipstream, burning fuel without gaining position. Even as Carney negotiated selective tariff relief this October, critics demanded a fresh route, one that defends both consumers and workers, not just diplomatic appearances. Before we delve deeper, do us a favor and smash that like and subscribe button. It helps the Piston Pundit engine reach more auto enthusiasts just like you. Because while Ottawa was mirroring Washington, another player was shifting gears, and Beijing was ready to make its move. China shifts gears, attempting trade reset. As tensions with Washington grew, Beijing saw an opening and floored the accelerator. Chinese Ambassador Wang Di proposed that if Canada dropped its 100% EV tariffs, China would lift its duties on Canadian canola, meat, and seafood, a clear signal to reset strained ties. For prairie farmers, the offer promised long-awaited relief. Exports to China had plunged 76% by mid-2025, and reopening that market could inject billions back into rural economies. But the proposal carried serious geopolitical torque. Accepting it could be seen as defying U.S. pressure to isolate China's state-backed EV industry. For Canadian consumers, though, the upside looked bright. Brands like BYD, NIO, and XPeng deliver long-range EVs at accessible prices, offering what the domestic market desperately lacks: affordability and choice. Critics warn that easing tariffs might flood the market with subsidized imports and undercut local jobs. Prime Minister Mark Carney remains cautious, keeping talks alive but avoiding firm commitment. Beneath the diplomacy hums one truth like an idling engine. Canada must decide whether to keep following allies or forge its own route. And that question leads straight to the crossroads. Can Canada finally balance power between loyalty and independence? Balancing the scales. Canada's push for trade independence. Canada now sits between two economic engines pulling hard in opposite directions. The US offers a trusted market and shared standards but demands unwavering loyalty. China tempts with cheaper EVs, renewed farm exports, and new investments, yet raises the risks of political and security entanglements. Economists warn that shadowing Washington's playbook is unsustainable. Tariffs meant to protect North American manufacturing have throttled consumer choice and shifted production elsewhere. Meanwhile, Europe is building battery gigafactories, Mexico and Brazil are attracting new EV brands, and Asia continues to dominate lithium refining. A smarter Canadian strategy could fuse resilience with openness. Rather than blanket bans, Ottawa could target unfairly subsidized models while welcoming automakers willing to assemble domestically using Canadian steel and labor. That would keep control at home, generate jobs, and transfer technology. A true win for both the auto sector and the climate agenda. Even Agriculture Minister Heath MacDonald admits EV tariffs may now be outdated. As Carney engages both Washington and Beijing, the new mission is pragmatic balance, protecting sovereignty while staying plugged into the global EV circuit. And as this tug-of-war plays out, the outcome is already producing both winners and warning signs. Torque, trade, and triumphs, the new map ahead. Trade tensions have created both setbacks and surprise winners. Canada's auto industry has taken the hardest hit. GM halted BrightDrop EV van production in Ontario, while Stellantis shifted Jeep Compass assembly to the US. Ottawa retaliated by cutting their tariff-free import quotas, warning that federal support hinges on keeping jobs at home. Meanwhile, the Buy Canadian movement has turbocharged local vineyards. Ontario and Quebec wine sales have surged over 70% as retailers replaced US labels with homegrown bottles, proof that economic friction can sometimes spark national pride. For everyday Canadians, however, EV prices remain stubbornly high. Without Chinese competition, entry-level options are limited and costs inflated. Analysts estimate easing tariffs could slash prices by 20 to 30% and help Canada reach its 2035 zero-emission goal. The broader takeaway? Resilience and diversification. A nation dependent on one superpower risks losing control of its own gears. Balance is the only way forward. But as the dust settles, one thing's certain. Canada's next turn on the trade track will define its industrial identity for decades to come. Verdict. Turning point. Canada's trade engine in transition. Right now, Canada stands at a historic crossroads. One road paved with loyalty to Washington, the other leading toward opportunity in Beijing. Every tariff, every negotiation ripples from Windsor's assembly lines to prairie farms. Mirroring America brought stability but also stagnation. Charting an independent route could mean risk, but also revival. For automakers and consumers alike, the next decision will shape Canada's industrial DNA. Will it remain a background player in someone else's supply chain, or rise as an innovation leader in its own right? The clutch is in, and the next shift could redefine the nation's future. Before we park this story, let's open it up to you. What path should Canada take? Loyalty to the US or trade independence with China? Should Ottawa lift EV tariffs and invite Chinese automakers to build locally? And do you think Canada can truly become a self-reliant automotive hub again? Drop your thoughts below. We'd love to hear your take. If you enjoyed this deep dive, subscribe to Piston Pundit to stay tuned for the latest vehicle updates, trade twists, and automotive insights. Thanks for watching. And until next time, keep your engines running and your minds in gear. You can now check out any of the videos on the screen. There's plenty more to explore.